The city is full of buildings, cars, people, but there's also a good share of vacant places. What are the main causes of building vacancy? Well, there are brownfields left by structural deindustrialization, redevelopment stopped by economical crisis, obsolete office buildings and working spaces, buildings kept voluntarily empty by speculation, structural vacancy increased by interest of real estate industry, and places abandoned by constant emergence of new needs. As a consequence, the share of vacant spaces in cities is increasing in Europe and elsewhere. In order to face problems of vacancy and to take advantage of empty buildings, there is something called temporary use. How does temporary use work? So let's imagine an empty property, or one that has not been used for a certain period of time. The owner cannot find any use for this space at market rate. On the other hand, a project initiator is looking for a place at an accessible price. A contract is made between the owner and the project initiator. The project initiator is given this property for temporary use. The contract states the commitments of the project initiator, which are a responsible use of the space, contribution to maintenance and light renovation, possible ideas and opportunities for long-term use. There are also commitments for the owner as well, offering a preferential rent, defining the exact duration of this temporary use. The vacancy is therefore revived in the form of a mutual benefit for both owners and project initiators. How did the concept of temporary use appear? Temporary use emerged from the practice of squatter settlements and cultural activists doing positive occupation. In the last decade, temporary use has evolved as a tool for urban development, experimenting with urban planning, testing emerging usages in the city, revitalizing the most abandoned areas. Temporary use is now recognized as an asset for economic and cultural development of the city, accommodating projects in their starting phase, hosting economic incubators in the city, finding places for emerging ideas, strengthening equity and involvement of citizens in the city development process. Developing temporary use is also a challenge. For city administrations, the challenge is to integrate temporary use in the current legal and institutional framework, to fit public procurement rules, to match security and public access standards. The challenge is also to act as brokers on private owners' markets, and to keep the positive achievements brought by temporary use beyond the temporary period of use. For property owners, the challenge is to integrate management of short-term transactions into longer-term business cycles, to open up to new practices and new value creation models, and to guarantee the availability of their properties. And for temporary users, the challenge is to access inspiring industrial heritage and large places in the city center, to settle in space all the while remaining flexible and mobile, to benefit from temporary use without staying trapped in a permanent, precarious, vicious circle. So in conclusion, temporary use is a win-win solution for all stakeholders. For owners, it ensures soft maintenance of their properties. For users, it lowers barriers to accommodate their initiatives. For residents and merchants, it promotes a lively and dynamic neighborhood. For the city itself, temporary use is an experimentation buffer for redevelopment and a booster for cultural, social, and economic activities. For sustainability, it means intensifying the use of equipment, more equity and social integration, and more democracy to live and learn in the city.